Yeah, I think Murli sir, Pandit sir, Sani sir, Srivastava ji, or Mishra sir.
Sir Pandit, good evening.
Yeah.
Sorry for the delay, 2 minutes.
Yes.
No problems.
Yes.
So,
We can start.
yeah, so you can welcome the Mother's Gathering, and then the Salil is with us to introduce Pandit sir.
Yes.
He can
Good evening, all members of ISCH MRC and other ISCH members from other sections, and also my dear student members. I am very proud to invite all of you for this Diamond Jubilee special lecture series. This is third in the series, and we are privileged to have with us Professor A.B. Pandit, the Vice Chancellor of Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. And he has kindly agreed to us to deliver this special lecture on rainwater harvesting, rural and urban opportunities. Professor Pandit is well known to all of us. He is a great supporter of ISCHE for many activities. And I just recall the last program OIC we had in the ICT campus. And he is currently the Vice Chancellor of Institute of Chemical Technology. He is a professor of UGC Research Scientist, C Professor's grade, and he is a JC Bose National Fellow of DST Government of India. He has received several national and international prestigious awards, including the Best Teacher Award by the Indian National Academy of Sciences, and Sir JC Bose Fellowship from DST, as I told you just now, Vishwakarma Medal from the Indian National Academy of Science, INSA, then Fellowship of the World Academy of Sciences. He has to his credit 15 patents and 350 plus research publications, and he is on the editorial board of 5 international journals and associate editor of Ultrasonic Sonochemistry. And some of the other notable achievements include he is currently elected just recently the Vice President of the Indian National Academy of Engineering, a prestigious position, and a coordinator of the ICT DAE, Department of Atomic Energy Center for Chemical Engineering Education and Research, where myself and Professor Pandit had very intensive interaction. I was the chairman of the advisory committee of this ICT DAE Center for Chemical Engineering Education and Research till September 2020. And he is a member of Project Appraisal and Evaluation Committee of the DST and UGC. He is a member of the Board of Governors of IIT Bombay. He is president of Land Research Institute and NGO dealing with the energy and town planning sector. And he is a very active industrial consultant for many large-sized national and international companies. We are very proud that Professor Pandit has agreed to our request and chosen this wonderful topic where chemical engineering is going to play a major role to benefit the society. And over to Professor Pandit. Thanks, Professor Pandit, for accepting and joining us today.
He recently elected as the Vice President for IIT. Pandit sir, please.
Please sharing for Professor Pandit.
You tell me when to start.
Nikhil, are you giving sharing?
Sir,
you can
start now, sir.
Okay.
You just have to press present now.
Oh.
Please tell me when you are able to see.
Yeah, we are able to see. Put it in the view mode.
See the slide completely.
Mode.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see the slide?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Put it in the view mode.
Right,
Presentation mode.
Huh?
You have put in the presentation mode already. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Continue, please.
Yes, yes.
That's okay. I think as long as you're able to see me,
Yeah,
that's
we are
fine.
able to
I
see.
think
Yes,
you can
yes,
put it in view mode and see my face if you want to, but
yes, yes, yes. We could see that. Thank you, thank you.
you can concentrate on the presentation mode. Yeah. Anyway, I think many thanks, Kamachi, for your introduction. And I must first apologize for not being active in the IICHE MRC activities, which I used to be very, very active. But due to added responsibilities, it's just not possible to devote any time. But whenever there is an opportunity, I have always grabbed that opportunity with both the hands. And when Dr. Kamachi asked me about this presentation, I immediately agreed. I hesitated slightly because I just wanted to check my schedule. But as soon as I saw that I have an opening and a slot available, I agreed to it. And the choice of the topic which I took was dependent on some of the recent work which I got through my students through a seminar. So what I'm presenting here today has been prepared basically by one of my student Himanshu Sel, and that's why the first slide itself acknowledges his efforts. And what I have done subsequently is I have modified this presentation to see to it and bring it relevance in terms of total context and societal working or anthropological activities. Now, rainwater harvesting options. Usually, rainwater harvesting and hydraulics was a subject which was dealt by civil engineers. But in the recent past, people have started realizing that just the storage of water is not enough, but the storage, transportation, treatment, all these come under the gamut of chemical engineering. And that is why it is essential for us to look it from a different angle, and civil engineers as well as chemical engineers put together can really make the regions which are currently facing this into regions which are water flush. You would have read newspaper articles, Jalayukta Shivar initiative, which was started by the previous governments. And there have been many other such organizations and initiatives such as Pani Foundation and others. Now, all these concentrate on the rainwater harvesting. And the reason why they are concentrating on the rainwater harvesting, that India being an agricultural economy, dominant agricultural economy, almost 70% of water which precipitates over the entire India or whatever water is used for agricultural purposes. But at the same time, over a period, you will find that the population is shifting from from rural India to urban India, as a result of which the people who are involved in the farming activity are decreasing. At the same time, the productivity associated with the farming activity has also gone up. But at the same time, this for this to sustain, it is absolutely essential that availability of water. So if you look at the background and see where we stand today and what is expected in another 4 or 5 years or so, you'll find that there are regions, and especially the northern part of India, where the quantum of monsoon, not northeast, but the northwest part of India, which is essentially what you can call it as a grain bowl, Punjab, Haryana. The kind of exploitation of water which has happened there, the water table has drastically gone down. The regions in Rajasthan, which were difficult to as such plow and difficult as such to use for agriculture activities, are becoming now impossible, not only difficult. As a result of which, one needs to look at this system in totality. You will find that each of these slides lists out, and I'm very open for the IICHE MRC to share these slides. I have absolutely no objections, but I'm not going to read the slides, but I'm just going to give you or talk about the key messages which each slide is presenting. Now, if you consider the totality and an average picture meaning if you consider the total quantum of rainfall which occurs all over India, the total population and the distribution of water availability, that is average rainfall per unit area, per unit person, India is more than sufficient, But still we find problems, be it Chennai, be in Gujarat, Kutch, be in Rajasthan, be in northern part of Madhya Pradesh, that people are struggling. Now, this struggle is mainly because whatever precipitation occurs, we are not able to use more than 5% of the total precipitation which is happening over our country, because no specific efforts have been taken, and the development which occurs as far as nation's infrastructure progress is concerned results into concretization of roads, and there is very little opportunity for the water to seepage through and get absorbed. As a result of which, we have to look at rainwater harvesting very scientifically and quantitatively rather than just letting things happen. And that is why, in my opinion, this particular topic, and this finally a student of mine, Himanshu Sail, did an outstanding job. And I thought I must share the findings and make you aware what opportunities do exist and quantitatively how these opportunities are likely to be extremely beneficial, not only or economic analysis. If we move on, this is the region where we are concentrating ourselves. Now, India, again, as you know, is a topologically very, very different country. It has got plain fields, it has got deserts, it has got jungles and forests, so on and so forth. And the distribution of water or precipitation is also significantly different. As a result of which, even when you store water, there is a problem of distributing this particular water, because mainly the population which is residing doesn't reside at the location where the precipitation is highest. In some places it is, but in some other places it is not. Now, if you consider the Western Ghats, where the rainfall is in excess of 3,000 to 5,000 millimeters in the 4 months, you will find all the rivers in the Western Ghat region run only for about 3 to 4 months of the year. Rest of the time, the people struggle, mainly because no opportunity has been utilized for harvesting the rainwater to be able to use it throughout the year. So, to introduce, let me just define some phrases which we are going to use during the discussion. First phrase which we are going to use some definitions is the catchment of the collection area, the area over which the rainwater happens, I mean the precipitation happens, and the size of the area, as we all understand, can be expressed in terms of meter square or hectare square or whatever. So catchment area is the total quantum of air, total quantum of area, and we are trying to collect the precipitation occurring over the entire area. Then we have to think about conveyance systems, meaning the production or the utilization of water need not happen at the location of precipitation, and so we have to use means of conveying that particular water. But for the conveying of the water, you require a certain storage component, because you don't necessarily use rainwater while it rains. You would like to utilize that rainwater over an extended period, because the rain will occur for probably a couple of hours or half a day during a week, and you like that particular water to be utilized at least for a period of 1 week or not, if not more. So that is the storage component, is how much area and what type of a device which you will use for storage. And as you can list it out here, we can have ponds, reservoirs, small size reservoirs, large size reservoirs, and we will come to that. It's also possible for us to use the existing groundwater aquifers for recharging of the wells, and we will come to that in due course of time. And the fourth definition, which is most important, is where do we use this particular water which has been collected and stored. This is what is called as a cropping area. So what we need to do, since the land is at a premium cost, we need to consider the quantum of land which we are going to use to store the water and the quantum of land which we are going to utilize for using that particular water effectively, either for agriculture activity, for household, livestock consumption, irrigation farms, so on and so forth. It is important to understand the kind of a water distribution occurs in an agriculturally dominant country like India. Almost 70% of the total water is utilized for farming purposes, for agricultural purposes, and the situation is no different in any state or in any country. You will find that even in a place like California, which is also agricultural dominant economic state within the United States of America, almost 75% of the water is utilized for agricultural purposes. Once we understand this, it becomes relatively easy to quantify each of these definitions in terms of area, conveyance systems, in terms of gutters, grills, channels, and the cropping area. Broadly speaking, the rainwater harvesting can be categorized in four components: micro catchment, macro catchment, then flood water harvesting, and finally rural. So I'm going to start from micro catchment of rainwater harvesting techniques which are available. Now, what do you mean by micro catchment? Of course, based on the four definitions which I had discussed earlier, the relative area, the storage capacities, the quantum of water which is stored, the quantum of water which is transported, the quantum of area which is used for cropping, all these are relatively smaller in numbers, and that's why it can be implemented at a local level. You don't have to think in terms of bigger systems or larger systems. Now, a few years ago, I came across a very nice story of about 22 different individuals or groups which came about and decided to harvest water. And if you get a chance, please read this particular book. Again, it is not quantitative. Engineering wise, it doesn't offer any solutions, significant solutions, but it broadly gives you some semi-quantitative pictures and semi-quantitative outlets in terms of how to harvest and use the rainwater. So let's move on. And what we think here, or what we see here, is the start of the micro catchment. Now here, basically, the runoff water is put in a small. See, you see these, they are fairly simple, right? Fairly simple technique, involve a huge quantum of investment. It is just a question of digging the earth and making adequate temporary reservoirs. So here the catchment area is small, usually anywhere between 20 meters square to 100 meters square. And the CCR, that is catchment to cropping ratio, that is how much area you utilize for catching of water or harvesting of rainwater, and how much area which you utilize to actually grow the crop using this harvested rainwater. You'll see at the least it is 2:1, at the highest it is 10:1. This is for micro catchment, and you will find that the CCR value significantly varies as the scale of operation goes up, and we will see that in a minute. So broadly speaking, when you consider 500 meters square, now 1 hectare is approximately 10,000 meters square, right? 100 meters by 100 meters. Now that means there are 20 such plots which are there. Now, if you get a chance that collectively the farmers come together and decide to donate with a CCR of 10:1, decide to donate 10% of their land for the storage of the water, it can service 90% of the area of where they can carry out cropping without having to worry about external water source availability, because the overall precipitation is significant in majority of the cases. In some areas it is less, and we will see how it can be exploited. So in this particular situation, you see how the construction is carried out. You have on the right hand side a small bunds which are created, the water and a slope is created. So two things which are most important here is the water should run off into the storage system without much of a difficulty, without having to pump it. So you have to rely on the flow due to gravity, and then this water should be available within the local area in terms of having a different gullies or a different channels which will allow the water to be distributed over the cropping area. Now, this system is appropriate for semi-parched to dry regions where the precipitation occurs occasionally and in an intense way, like a thunderstorm where a lot of water gets precipitated. And if you are able to harness this particular water effectively, then you can really use this water for cropping purposes. Soil should be sufficiently profound, meaning it should have a water holding capacity. And if I get time, I will see how different additives can be used to amend the soil's capability to hang on to water, to hold on to water, right, to improve the productivity significantly. There are some more ways in which the same system is practiced. Now, this is called as Nagarim systems, and you will see the Nagarim system indicates a diamond-shaped regions which have been constructed, where you see a hole out there at the bottom of it. The direction of the arrow indicates the kind of slope which is there, and the location where you have a hole where the water storage occurs. Now, the storage of water is sufficient to cover this area, which is approximately 1.5 meters up to 70 centimeters or so, a diamond-shaped rectangle. So every plant has its own water storage. So rather than you storing the water at one specific location and then bothering to distribute it, you construct and convert the entire land topography in such a way that each plant which planted has its own water source, make it available during the 3 or 4 months period or whatever is the harvesting period for that particular crop. There are some guidelines in terms of what should be the bund height. That is, the overflow can be collected separately, but the quantum of water which is required for the cultivation and for the duration of that particular harvesting period are indicated by 25 centimeters, about a foot deep. So if you assume a rainfall of 700 millimeters, a typical catchment area of 100 meters square, and a runoff coefficient of 0.8, meaning 80% of the precipitation has been collected and has been utilized, you will find that approximately 56 meters cube of water can be harvested. Now, if you consider this per hectare and having this, then you will have approximately 56,000 meter cube, and you can calculate if you wanted to feed these particular plants or irrigate these plants using tanker water, you multiply 560 tankers multiplied by approximately 5,000 rupees per 10 meter cube tanker, what kind of cost savings you are likely to have. Let's move on. This is just an indication how it is happening. So this table typically gives you guidelines in terms of how the bund height, the kind of slope which is required, what are the recommended areas which we can use for catching of the water, and what are the typical CCRs, the catchment to cropping ratios which are amenable to this type of a geometric arrangement. Second, we are still on micro catchment areas. Second type of arrangement is called as semicircular bunds. I'll show you some photographs in due course of time. Again, this can be utilized because India has got different topography all over. Multiple options need to be explored. One option is not going to be applicable and valid for all the topological areas. So here again, this particular option of constructing semicircular can be utilized where the total rainfall, average rainfall, annual rainfall is in the range of 200 to 750 millimeters. The maximum slope of the land allowed is about 20%. If anything more than that, it becomes difficult to store it. So this is maximum, but the quantum of water which can be stored depending upon the slope of the land, I will see in due course of time how it can be quantified. So the catchment area to cropping ratio is less as compared to what we saw in the earlier condition, earlier situation, and the ideal cropping CCR is approximately 4:1. That means 25% of the land area you'll have to use it for storage, and the balance 75% area can be utilized for cropping purposes. So some ideas or some guidelines in terms of what is going to be the radii, what is going to be the length, what any excess water which occurs over the whatever quantum of precipitation which has been specified above can be diverted, can be collected separately. This is typically useful when you have a sudden outburst or a sudden cloud burst where the quantum of water is so high that none of the systems are likely to be workable, but whatever you can harvest, you can harvest. So these are contour ridges, as you can see from here. The picture is fairly indicative, and you will have even better indicator. You will find that again the collected water is stored. So what you see is the storage part and the part where the actual cropping occurs. Now here the cropping is utilized is significantly small. So here you see cropping area is only about 2. So if I just move on to the next slide, and maybe required if you can come back. But if I'm in a position to do this, you see that this is what you have a system where you have a catchment area and a cultivated area. Cultivated area is cropping area. Now here the cropping area is quite small as compared to the catchment area, as a result of which your CCR ratio is fairly low. But this will be useful depending upon, if I just go to the previous slide, depending upon the type of plant which you require. Some plant require growth, and the roots need to be operating under anaerobic conditions. In some cases, the root needs to be operated under aerobic, anaerobic conditions, as a result of which, depending upon the type of crop which you want, this will help you in deciding what sort of depth and sequence in terms of length, as well as the crop distribution between the catchment area and cropping area can be carried out. So if the length of the catchment is very small, the loss of water from the system can be prevented completely. Now the loss of water is an extremely important consideration, because in all of these cases, water is going to be stored and it is exposed to sun. So on an average, if you consider with the sunlight radiations in the range of about 700 to 1000 watts per meter square, in a day's time, that is approximately 6 hours, anywhere between 10 to 30 liters of water can get evaporated depending upon the atmospheric humidity. So what you will find in due course of time, you will see this discussed, that out of the storage water, a significant quantum of water gets lost due to evaporation, and at the same time, significant quantity of water goes into the soil, which may not be directly useful depending upon the nature of the soil, whether the soil is very porous, does it have a rocky base where the water can remain stored, can just go to the local or underground pool, which needs then pumping out. Right, this is the indicator. So typically ridge spacing, ridge height, earthwork, that is the quantum of earth which needs to be removed to construct the land in such a pattern to be able to harvest the water and utilize it. Now this is extremely important, earthwork, mainly because this is where it is going to cost. You're not using any external raw materials as of, but the labor to be able to convert that land in the form of rainwater harvesting capability is related directly to the quantum of earthwork which needs to be dug out and needs to be redistributed, right? So you see a statement, wherever ditch is required, 62.5 meter cube of earthwork needs to be added per 100 meter length. Now, why this 62.5 meter cube is important, we will see that in terms of what is going to be the labor cost associated with it and what will return we are going to get when we spend so much money on the labor. So to summarize these micro catchment techniques, there are about 8 different techniques here. So the first column gives you the name of the technique. The second column gives you the total or range of catchment areas. The third is the cropping areas. The fourth is CCR. And fifth is the precipitation, that is how many millimeters of rainfall occurs per annum. And the last column essentially gives you the permitted slope of the land where you can utilize this particular technique. Now, since this presentation is going to be available to you, you can look at it, you can discuss it, and if you want any additional details, I'll be more than happy to share it with you or discuss with you. Let's move on to the macro catchment rainwater harvesting, since we have considered micro. In this particular case, we are now looking at a much larger scale. Now, the catchment area could be 1,000 meters square, that is 1 hectare, or it could be hundreds and thousands of hectares. This is typically the area where you collect the water from slopes or from rivers, and all the water which we get in Mumbai essentially is collected by these means. Lakes which are there, which is the aquifer storage, are such storage quantities, storage lakes which supply water to Mumbai and nearby region. At the same time, water is also made available from this particular storage. The depth and the charging of the aquifer, the groundwater aquifer, will depend, because the water is going to be available, water is going to continuously seep into the soil, and a release of water can be done in a controlled manner depending upon the area which requires water for cultivation and for irrigation. Now here you see the biggest advantage is the CCR can be as high as 100:1. That means you require 1 acre area as long as water is sufficient, precipitation is sufficient, in a position to service approximately 100 hectares of land. So 1 hectare. So typically in India, unfortunately, what we have is a land holding is small, and that is why an individual farmer can look into a small area, maybe 1 hectare, 2 hectares, which is approximately 2 to 4 acres, or 5 acres is the average average land ownership which we have. So it becomes difficult for him to rely on this macro catchment, but micro catchment options which we discussed earlier are likely to be extremely useful. So some of the most common technologies are hillside runoff, conduit system, large circular trapezoidal bunds, earth or stone, and we will see this briefly in due course of time in subsequent slides. These are trapezoidal bunds. If you see the direction of water, the rain, the slope is adjusted in such a way that the water comes in here, it gets out here. If you see the my cursor moving out here, the overflow water moves in, goes to a next set of bunds and goes on. So the system consists of base bund, which is usually connected to 2 side bunds by wings or wall at an angle of 135. This is a wing or a wall. A distance of about 20 centimeters is maintained. Now these are broad guidelines. Between the bunds in adjacent line of 30 centimeters is spaced from the tip. This is about 30 centimeters. So that overflow water can go to a next bund. Trapezoidal bunds are generally limited to 2 rows, since the 3rd or the 4th row receives a very less runoff, right? At the base of the bund, you can use a flood water depth of 40 centimeters is maintained at this particular end, right? So that sufficient quantity of water can remain. The one thing we should remember, that as long as you are able to store the water and the earth is of a good quality, it may not be necessary directly for you to use the water for irrigation. The roots are sufficiently facile to penetrate towards the source of water and take water wherever it is available. But the dimensions and the distances over which these roots can spread depend on the crop which you want to take up, and there are guidelines. And that is where rainwater harvesting for agricultural purposes needs to be done in consultation with the farmers or with the agriculturalists. Precisely are in a position to tell you that depending upon the crop which you want to take, to what extent this crop requires water, how frequently, what is the quantum, Say, just to give you an example, typically a palm tree or a tree which is a coconut tree, on an average in the initial stages, and they are always grown in tropical countries where rain and precipitation rate is significantly higher. But on an average, they require about 300 to 400 liters of water per day per plant. Now, that is only possible if you have a significant quantity of precipitation. So similarly, different plants require different quantums of water, and depending upon the type of plantation which you want to have, pomegranate is another one which requires much lesser water. So these type of arrangements can be very easily done, and that's why the person who is indulging into a practice of rainwater harvesting needs to consult an agriculturalist and decide which particular rainwater harvesting option it is going to adopt or it's going to take. So the efficiency of the model decreases with increasing slope because it cannot store more water as indicated earlier. These are contour stone bunds, which you can see again a picture, and you can see the kind of slope which is there. After few meters of distance, which is essentially the cropping area is this, the storage area occurs, and you can have the depth near this particular stone bund walls, and this entire area can be used as a cropping area. And the water doesn't get stored completely like a concrete dam. It slowly percolates, as a result of which the storage remains for some storage of water remains for some time. The water seeps through it and it also percolates. And the slope is good enough for the entire field to get water, and the water is stored not stored periodically, but stored for some period to keep the water, to keep the soil moist. Fund is fairly simple with a base width of about 35 to 40 centimeters and a minimum height of 25 centimeters. Undermining by runoff is prevented by setting the bund in a shallow trench. That is, you dig a trench, first stone and then gravel, and then build this particular bund. If the slope is between 1 or 2%, blunt spacing is 15 meters is sufficient. That is the distance between these two bunds, meters. So 15 meters of cropping is going to be sufficient. Now, please bear with me. These numbers are in a way vague, but you will see when we work out an example later on how these numbers are extremely important when you want to estimate the economic benefits in due course of time. Please bear with me. So if the slope is between 1 or 2%, but spacing of 50 meters is sufficient, while the slope 1%, you can have 20 meters of bund. So lower the slope, better is going to be your cropping area in this particular case of contour stone bunds. So these are again guidelines for the macro catchment. Similar to micro catchment, these are the guidelines which have been recommended when you want to adopt macro catchment options for rainwater harvesting. Right? Contour stone bunds are used in case of variations where the precipitation could be as high as 750 millimeters. Large semicircular hoops, again the range, again you will find the same definition, same definitions have been used. Catching area, cropping area, precipitation, and here you have slope. Now, two additional parameters have been indicated out here. That is the slope of the catching area and slope of the cropping area. Now, the slope of the catching tell you with what force the water is going to be reaching the bund, which needs to be stored. So the bund needs to be of specific height, of specific strength. At the same time, depending upon the type of crop which you want to grow, a crop requires roots submerged in water or root open to atmosphere. This is also important. That's why these two additional parameters in terms of slope of catching area and cropping area have been listed out here in this. So if you consider a case, this case study was conducted, though the calculations have been done by my student and myself, the case study was conducted not necessarily in terms of the quantum, right? The case study was conducted in a specific area, and we have gathered the information through a very vague journals and literature and talking to the people. Now, this is a Soan area, which is in the northwestern Himalayas, and we are talking about approximately 180 millimeters of runoff water, and that is multiplied by the catchment area to compute the volume of water which can be stored in sub-catchment, which can be used subsequently. So what you have in this particular table is what is the average area which we are talking about, what is the catchment area for the rainwater harvesting, which can, what are the variations, and what is the total. So area 1204 kilometers square, total catchment area is in terms of hectares, that is 700 hectares. Water which could be stored or to be stored for depending upon is millions of liters, that is 30,000 millions of liters. Evaporation loss occurs to the tune of about 4,371 million. Seepage loss also is to the tune of about 6,011 millions of liters. So net availability of water typically for an area of 16,700 hectares is approximately 19,678 liters of water. Now, with this basic, if we want to utilize this harvested water for increasing the crop yield or taking out the crop yield, how does the economic works out is the example which we have worked it out. So consider two specific crops which are possible in this particular terrain or this particular climate. We are considering one maize and second wheat. Average yield is 0.5 tons per hectare, that is approximately 500 kgs, 5 quintals of it. And procurement price, this is the MSP which we talk about, the current farmers agitation is going on about this. And as you can see from here, this number is pretty low. It's about 5 or 7 rupees per kg. This is about the same of the order. This is $136 per ton. Now, this is done in such a way that to make you aware that these numbers which the current farmers get. Now, with these kind of numbers, 7 rupees, 8 rupees, 10 rupees, 12 rupees, currently you will find that the paddy is being purchased at a cost of about 17 or 18 rupees. Wheat is being purchased depending upon the location in different mandis at 11 or 12 or 13 rupees. By the time it reaches, you multiply by 4 and that is going to be made. Consider the cost of fertilizers, and if you find that if you are able to find increase in the yield, that is 50% increase in the case of maize, 50% double the yield or 1.5 times the yield which you get, you will find what is going to be the additional revenue which you will be able to generate. So this is the area which you remember, 19,700 hectares which we talked about. The precise number is 19,680 hectares. The kind of fertilizers which you will use to protect the insecticide and so forth. And if you get 50% more, then you are likely to get approximately $400,000 as additional income if you are planting maize. And these are the numbers: $700,000, $800,000. Then approximately $2 million, $3 million. This is for the total area. So if you consider total area and what is the additional income which you can get, and now this needs to be compared, of course, with whatever money which you are going to spend to create this rain harvesting infrastructure. So it was assumed that the yield of maize will increase by 0.5 tons per hectare because of the availability of water, and 3 possibilities of 0.5, 1 and 1.5 tons per hectare were considered in the case of wheat. So if we implement the rain harvesting plan, the total increase in annual income would be somewhere in the range of 1,000. I don't get this particular number because this is only for the 19,680 hectares put together. But I think let's move on. So this is approximately 5 to 15,000 rupees per hectare additional income you are likely to get by adopting a rainwater harvesting. On an average, the Indian farmer earns anywhere between 30,000 rupees per hectare to approximately, depending upon the crop, of course. If it is cereals, then it is rarely between more than 60,000 rupees per hectare. If it is a fruit crop, then it can go to as high as 5 lakh per hectare if you consider pomegranate. But if you consider vegetables, you on an average, you are averaging over 80,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees per hectare is what the Indian farmers earn by cultivation or by agricultural activity. So these are the kind of a benefit to cost ratios. So consider a reservoir which has been utilized, a small reservoir, medium-sized reservoir, and once you construct a reservoir, barring storms and floods and others, we'll see that in a minute, how that can also be handled. What is the quantum of water which can be stored? What are going to be the construction cost, capital cost for this particular construction, present value of lifetime? So basically, you distribute it over a 25-year lifetime of that. There are going to be some maintenance costs which are going to be required, and you will get in a sustained manner more than $1,500 per hectare as an income for the next additional 25 years. So in terms of a payback period, now this is what we chemical engineers must do all the time when we think in terms of a new project. You'll find that depending upon the ratios is benefit to cost ratio. At this scale, it is not, but there are multiple options which you'll find that when you get additional 0.5 tons in case of wheat for over 25 period, you get a positive income benefit to cost ratio. In case of depending upon the life of, if it is 40 years, then you will find that you can go as high as increase in 33%. If you do rigorous calculations and take into account, here the charges are considered to be same, but this is not going to remain the same over a period. These numbers will also indicate. But this table essentially tells you what is the system which you really should operate, which is going to definitely give you a positive benefit to cost ratio. So to conclude, what we are talking about is a macro catchment area. So to conclude, it is apparent that the total cost of implementing the proposed water management plan, considering various alternatives, varies from about 15 to 20 million US dollars, whereas the total additional net annual income from the catchment, considering the minimum increase in the grain yield, 0.5 per hectare, is going to be in the range of about $1,180,000. Thus, even if the minimum life of structure is 25 years, you can recover that particular cost in about 6 to 8 cropping cycles. Now, cropping cycles, majority of the grains have got a cropping period of approximately 3 to 4 months. So in a year, if water is made available to you all the time, then you can at least take out 2 crops per year. And that means in about 3 to 4 years time, you can recover all your expenses. Now, 3 to 4 years payback period for any chemical industry is quite acceptable. So here also, if we are able to utilize that water and treat it as an agriculture industry, you can indeed do it. However, if the project cost is likely to be 2 years, if only large structures are constructed. So that is why the benefit which we talk about is, should we have small dams or should we have large dams? If you consider large dams, then the benefits of the large dams are significantly more. The only problem is you need to create an additional infrastructure with the water irrigation, and you need to distribute this particular water through canals and channels, which is going to add to the cost of utilization. Let's briefly talk about the floodwater harvesting, because many a times the precipitation doesn't occur uniformly. And we have this in the past 4 years because of the changing weather pattern. We have seen that whatever we experienced, at least in my younger days, and the kind of rain water precipitation pattern which I see now, I can see a distinct difference. Previously, it used to happen spread out over a period of 4 months. Now what happens, it rains like hell for a couple of weeks, next 3-4 weeks are dry, then again it rains. So effectively, the storage capability and distribution capability also needs to be altered. So the rainwater harvesting also need to take into account excuse me, the techniques which are used for flood water harvesting. Along with the standard micro and macro harvesting of rainwater, we also need to consider the flood water harvesting techniques. Now, these are typically the kind of dams which we experience. The dam wall, which is about 70 centimeters high, about a meter high, a maximum height of 2 meters can be achieved because the hydrostatic head again becomes significantly large later on, and that head needs to be supported by the construction of the dam. So, higher the depth of the dam, higher is going to be the constructions. So typically these dams are long dams and up to 1 meter and can go up to 300, typically 50 to 30 meters. These are called as stoppage dams, and they don't necessarily store water permanently, but they store water for a period required during the cropping period. So here, in the case of horizontal to vertical slopes in the wings of 3:1, 2:1, downstream is about 1:1. But the basic advantage of these are broad guidelines, and the details calculations can be supported, can be found out in the literature. The broad objective of this particular exercise is allow the water to seep through the ground and increase the groundwater table. So essentially, the groundwater aquifer can be utilized for recharge purposes. These are water spreading dams, very similar to those bunds which you had seen, where you see that the direction of the topography and the slope, the water overflow goes out here, then comes out here. So water, you are essentially increasing the passage of the water. Higher the passage, longer the retention on the soil, the seepage and the groundwater recharge facilities are going to be significantly. So depending upon the land slope, what are the typical guidelines which are provided in terms of width? See, all these width and height are controlled by the locality of the raw materials. To what extent these raw material based construction are capable of withstanding the hydrostatic head, all these guidelines are essentially arising out of fluid mechanics. They are arising out of the hydraulics which we study in chemical engineering. As civil engineers will do exactly the same, but their orientation, whereas as chemical engineers, because we always look at material energy balance, input, output, and the yield, it is necessary for us to have a look at this particular situation in a different way and always associate these ratios. If we are spending something, what are we going to get, how fast we are going to get, so on and so forth. So these are related to the rural part. Now, do we have an opportunities available in terms of harvesting water? Now, indeed, there are possibilities. Now, I'll tell you some stories and the current guidelines of Ministry of Environmental and Forest. I'm one of the members of this particular committee which grants permission to the various industries to put up these industries. So the environmental clearance is given. Now, has come out with the guideline that every industry should have 33% of the land area within the industrial premises to be converted into greenfield, right? So you have to have 33% of the area covering greenfield. Greenfield doesn't mean only grass. Greenfield means proper trees and proper bushes, and the sizes of which are also specified. Second, similar to Bombay Municipal Corporation insisting to every society, new society which is coming up, to have a rainwater harvesting capability, have underground tank, store water, treat water and distribute it. For whatever purposes it is different. If you look at these situations, it is mandatory for us to actually utilize the rain which happens or rain occurs in a place like Mumbai. So these are some broad guidelines which are available. You will find many other options are available. Now these options are using the readily available materials which are available in the local DIY or hardware stores. In the rural part also, you will find you can use bamboos and channels made out of locally available material. So essentially the water through the roof is collected, is channeled, it's filtered and it is stored. So you have a terms of roofing material depending upon the life for which you want to utilize these rainwater harvesting structures. You have conveying systems, you have filtering system, and you have storage system. You'll be surprised that now we are talking about rainwater harvesting seriously. But there have been situations, some of the situations I'll tell you later on, there have been situations where people have been practicing this for yonks, for years together. Of my knowledge, at least for the past 40 years, few of the boarding schools in Panchgani, Mahabaleshwar area get extremely heavy rainfall. They collect the water only in those 2 or 3 months and use that particular water throughout the year. So during the construction of the school itself, they have created huge underground water storage. And once this particular water gets collected, and mind you, this is all distilled water because it's just a condensation of water vapor. So nothing, no contamination is occurring, and minor treatment of this particular water, simple filtration is adequate, and it is a potable quality water which you get, right? So the choices which you have when you are thinking in terms of urban rainwater harvesting opportunities are roofing material, conveying systems, urbanized land, corrugated cement sheets, asbestos sheets, tiles, slates, organic roof covering, conveyance systems, gutters, square wooden planks, bamboo gutters, and filtration systems, which we coarse filter, fine filters, first flush diversion. So when rain comes for the first time, a lot of dirt and dust gets washed off. You don't necessarily collect the first flush. You just divert that first flush, reject it, and then start storing from the second rain onwards. And you have storage systems again. You have plastic jars, brick tanks, cement tanks, or whatever is available, right? So what you need to consider as far as this is concerned is what is the cost of storage per liter of water. Now you'll find that if you are constructing a cement tank, then the cost varies anywhere between 40 paise to a rupee. If you use a plastic tank, it could be as high as 8 to 10 rupees per liter of water in terms of storage. So this is a case study typically for ICT main building, right? And you will see the kind of case study which has been worked out, which we worked out along with my student, as I said to you. We consider an annual rainfall 800 meters, which is much less. As far as in Bombay is concerned, this number will be in the range of about 4,000. So whatever which you get here, you multiply it by 5 times. So the total catchment area, if you consider the main ICT building, the area of which is approximately 2.25, 2,250 meters square, multiplied by 10. So essentially 22,500 meters square, feet square is the area, just the main building, not the buildings on the side or the wings. The perimeter of the building is 350 meters. The runoff coefficient, which I have considered here, 80%. And I'll tell you the problem here. ICT being a heritage structure, it is not possible for us to actually use it. And there was no such plan of rainwater harvesting. See, if at all I want to do rainwater harvesting, an external structure needs to be created, and municipal corporation will not allow us to change the look of the ICT. So it has to be connected from the backside, and indeed we have done it, especially for all the new construction which is currently going on in ICT. Be it our new hostel, be it our DAICT building, everywhere we are planning to correct the rainwater harvesting. The point which I am trying to indicate out here is what is the total quantum of water which can be harvested. And this main building itself consumes on an average 25 meter cube of water per day. So you can calculate for how many days this collected water can be utilized, right? And then this 25 to 30 meter cube per day is for all the labs which are located in the first building. Since the institute plans to recharge groundwater, the rainwater that has been collected needs to be directed to soak pits. We did this exercise a few years ago because ICT also has about 5 bore wells. Now, depending upon water, the quality of the water which can be drawn from the bore well varies. And what we found out, because of the excess draw, sea being very near, after about 2 years or so, out of those 5 bore wells, 3 bore wells started giving saline water, which cannot be utilized for gardening purposes. ICT has fairly large gardens, large number of trees, so it is necessary for us to maintain those trees and garden using a lot of water. So what we did in situation that the water which was getting collected from rainwater harvesting from the main new hostel as well as ICT advanced center building, we started collecting it. There was a pit of about 100-meter cube tank, and all the overflow of that 100-meter cube tank was put into a reverse bore well. And we started recharging this bore well with water. And to my surprise, I wasn't really expecting that. To my surprise, in about 2 monsoons, that is in about 2 years, out of those 2 bore wells which were giving saline water, both the bore wells started giving fresh water, meaning create a static head of fresh, pushes the pressure of hydrostatic head coming from seawater because of its vicinity. Now we have learned our lesson. As a result of which we know what is the extent of drawing of water needs to be done, and then we use it in a more controlled manner. So if you consider the cost of the excavation and the quantum of water which can be utilized, the costing of the piping and others, you will find that the water which is going to be collected through rainwater harvesting for any such reasonable size building will cost you approximately 21 rupees a meter cube. The current water cost which the Mumbai Municipal Corporation charges to ICT is in the range of about 28 to 30 rupees a meter cube. So if we spend this money, we will be saying similar to we putting up solar panels to generate approximately 750 kilowatt hours of electricity every day. This particular facility can also pay back this entire system in about 6 to 7 years. Now, 6 to 7 years for an educational institute is not a long time. We have to be very careful when we are storing water in urban areas. That is, there are likely to be pollutants which are coming from pollen, organic pesticides, microbial contamination. So before you utilize this water, it requires a certain treatment depending upon where you want to utilize that water. If you want to use it in lab, you can also use it as a distilled water. I'll tell you a story before I end my talk. My father in early 60s and 70s, till he retired in 1987, he used to collect all he was a chemistry professor. So they used to use distilled water for dilution, titration, preparation of the solution, so on and so forth. He never purchased a distilled water from the market. He used to collect all the water, rainwater. Again, he used to divert the first flush, second flush, and would collect in 200-liter drums, and he would use that particular water for all the chemistry experiments. Never purchase a distilled water which is required for running the chemistry labs. What I am trying to indicate that if you are conscious that an opportunity exists and it is a natural source which is available to you, and these natural sources of water are going to be renewable sources, and these renewable sources can be exploited. So these are the kind of basic treatments which you can carry out depending upon the final usage which you are going to think of for the collected and stored water. This is where I would like to stop, and I'm very happy that you have listened to me very patiently, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, queries which you may have.
Thank you.
Stop sharing there.
Thank you, Professor Pandit. It's a wonderful lecture, and I think what I thought a simple subject, water harvesting, has so much technical points that will give merit to the process. Is really amazing, and you have taken many case studies along with your students, and also you have done rainwater harvesting in your own institute, and you have seen the benefit of that. And it is something an eye opener. It's a new topic, very interesting topic. Thank you so much for agreeing and giving such a talk, which is very useful to us and to the society also. Thank you once again. I will ask maybe a couple of questions from the panelists, my members from the MRC. Yes, please. You can either type the question answer or you can directly ask Professor Pandit. Couple of questions.
You can directly ask. You can directly ask.
Vijay Swadesh, yeah.
Sunny here. Just one question. Since we have some new regulations for the new societies in the urban, do we have similar rules or possibly maybe for the industrial estates which are going to come up, or those who are there at the present, so we can use that particular water for the industrial use?
Yeah. In fact, the new MOEFCC guidelines clearly indicate that every new industrial estate or every new industry has to have two requirements. One, they should reserve 33% of the area for creating a green belt. 15% of their total water requirement throughout the year, they must have a water storage facility, because industry is not allowed to draw water depending upon Government of India had marked the regions where whether this particular region is water stressed or not. If it is identified as a water stressed region, you will not get a permission to have a borewell water. You will only have to have surface water if available or harvested rainwater. Otherwise, the MOEFCC will not give you a permission to start an industry. So there are clear-cut guidelines which have been listed out. And then again, as far as chemical industry is concerned, most of the chemical industries now are ZLDs. Now ZLD is zero liquid discharge, has put a boom in a way. Well, of course, you have to spend more time, money, but that has forced industries to recycle a significant quantity of water. Now, these guidelines are very strictly followed. I am seeing this, I've been attending these meetings now, and I see the kind of professional attitude which even the government is taking. It's a compliment. I never realized that it used to be the case that you pay something and get things done. Nothing, everything is now available on the portal. There is a portal called Pravesh Portal where you have to upload all the information. And only when information is available, industry for permission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dhaval, you can share the slides with all people, or you can share it with anybody else you want to have it. I'll be more than happy to receive their queries through email. And if anybody is interested to discuss and consider a case for their society, for their region, for their area, I'll be more than happy to consider it.
Definitely, sir. I'll share the slides. Even the video, which is getting recorded, will be published on YouTube, and it will be circulated in IICHE, and not just IICHE, of course, through IICHE to all academia and industry. So, Mishra ji, I think, wants to ask.
Sure.
Mishra ji, please ask. Sir, unmute yourself. Yes. Yes, sir.
Hello,
Yes,
Professor
sir.
Pandit. Sir, namaskar, BM Mishra here.
Yeah. Yes, Bridge.
Ex-BRC, BM Mishra.
Yes, yes, Mishra ji, boliye.
I have come into contact with Mr. Ullas Paranjpe. They are doing a very good job of rainwater harvesting. I will like, can I ask them to be in touch with you? They are doing a very good, okay. So,
absolutely.
Your email,
Absolutely no issues. And that's why I think I'll remind you again, there is a nice booklet which was distributed by Sri Late Vai Shah, the owner of Chembond Aqua Private Limited. Now the title of the book is called as Water Catchers. It's a nice collection of stories of the efforts of individuals and groups and how their local region they have used different techniques. Some of the photographs which you see here, I have picked it up from that, but it is a semi-quantitative one. Whereas the one which I am looking at it is more quantitative.
Okay. I will try to send their presentation with me. They have sent. I'll mail it to you.
Sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Student, Murli sir, you are muted. Murli sir, unmute yourself, please.
It's very nice. Kamachi, you are muted.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Panditji, I'll be happy if you give an article because finally we are planning to collect the articles from all the Diamond Jubilee lectures and bring out a book.
Okay.
So kindly provide an article, maybe 15-20 pages. I'll send you the instructions and guidelines later.
Sure. The article on the same topic is okay. I can.
Yes. I think this topic is very good. This is a very high relevance to the society, and I think it's a new topic, and we will highly appreciate if you can send the article. And of course, I think Dhaval will put the PPT in the website also if someone is interested to have a look at it. Those who could not attend today being Sunday, we have shifted twice the timing because of Sharmaji.
I think you should also listen to Professor Sharma's lecture starting at 7
o'clock. 7 o'clock. And somehow we managed. Because I had a meeting at 4 o'clock. I had to cut short that and came. And we had to manage.
It's happening all the time. Yes, it's happening all the time. Unfortunately, online things has become now a bane. Mainly because there is no free time.
Correct. Everyone makes their own program and
24/7 you are available on the net.
And no more Saturday, Sundays. You have all programs on Saturday, Sundays. Thank you so much.
Vinay, I can see Maheshwar Jain, all my old friends. It's so nice to see them.
Yeah.
So please be active and help us and support us and
always welcome. I cannot be engaged, but whenever you think that I can be of any assistance, feel free to approach me at any point of time, and I'll do my best.
Thank you so much.
Actually, we can take a click at it.
Yeah, all of us can switch on the camera. Sir, I request everyone to switch on the camera.
Yeah, sorry.
All of you panelists, please put on your.
Yes. Take the screenshots.
Himanshu is taking the photo?
Yes, sir. So Himanshu Sali.
Yes, sir. I'm taking the photos.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to this lecture, and also we have shifted from 7 to 6 to now. Thank you. Your cooperation was excellent, and lecture was also very nice.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks for joining us. And I want to thank all students who have joined also today evening, Sunday evening, and attending this very interesting talk, which we cannot read in any textbook in one go. So much interesting, valuable information he has given, starting from micro to macro to flood, and also he gave many case studies and then his own experience in ICT. It's just wonderful. I think it's a global talk, indeed, in totality. Thank you, Professor Pandit. Thank you, all members.
Bye. Okay, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, Pandit sir.
Thank you, Dhaval. Thanks. Vinay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mahendra Patel ji.